Oh, the wonders of technology. Thank goodness for new generations that come up that can figure out how all this stuff works. I went ahead and, when we switch over to 10 a.m. worship, there's things that we have to remember to do. I used to have to change the voicemail. We don't have voicemail anymore, but I have to go out and change the church sign so it doesn't say 10:30, it says 10 o'clock for all of our neighbors to see. But I noticed another church sign that was out that said, "Our pastor is on vacation, so the preaching just got a whole lot better." I think I'll stay in charge of the sign. That might be. The end of Ephesians chapter 4 going into Ephesians 5 ponders, what does it mean to be church? More particularly, what do we do with human anger? Verse 26, it says, be angry. You can be angry. Be angry, but do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger. And then in verse 31, put away bitterness, wrath, anger, wrangling, slander, and malice. The sermon title for today is Church as Tenderbox. And it doesn't show it here, but it does show it back on the computer. As I tried to put this together, it has a little red squiggly line that Microsoft Word puts under Tenderbox. Do you know why? It's spelled wrong. It is spelled incorrectly. Instead of I for Tenderbox, it's E for Tenderbox. Anybody remember tender boxes, what those were? Does a Tenderbox sound familiar for somebody who's been around a little bit longer than me? Okay, I see a few nodding heads. They were kits for starting fires. And they happen to be very, very flammable. So now it's used as a metaphor for situations that are ready to explode with anger or violence. Something is described as a tinder box. Unfortunately, I wonder how many churches or how many Christians could be described as a tinder box with an I. Think of situations where angers tend to flare. Discussions of faith and theology. I spoke with a lady recently who was relieved to hear that I'm a pastor because she knew I preached the word. Because this world is going to pieces, and she expressed all this with such anger and bitterness and self-righteousness. A tinderbox. Or you can have a discussion about politics, and this is a year for that. It's an invitation to dialogue becomes a stark dividing line. Dave Chappelle, who's mostly known for being a comedian, says, our culture has accepted two huge lies. The first is that if you disagree with someone's lifestyle, you must fear or hate them. And the second is that to love someone means you agree with everything they believe, say, or do. And both are nonsense. You don't have to compromise convictions to be compassionate. That's the tinderbox of faith and politics, but how about dealing with family? Consider the difficulty of navigating close interpersonal relationships. Disney has that whole Toy Story franchise, and in that there are two memorable contrasting songs. One says, "You friend in me." The other one says, "When she loved me." A doll that's singing about when she was so close to the little girl, but as the girl grew up, the doll kind of fell to the wayside. You've got a friend in me, you can depend on me, or I remember those good old days, but they seem to have gone away. Relationships are difficult and can be easily marred by holding anger, bitterness, and resentment, feelings that can become a tinderbox with an I. But the church is called to be a tender box with an E. Pope Francis, God rest his beautiful soul, said, God in Jesus has summoned us to the revolution of tenderness. God in Jesus has summoned us to the revolution of tenderness. In Ephesians 4, verse 29, it says, use words that build up and give grace to those who hear them. I had to think about that a little bit. I get the idea of using words that build people up, but thinking about not only words that build up, but words that give grace to someone. Offer them grace for whatever it is that they're going through at the moment. Words that build up and offer grace. There's powerful ways in which words can create. Genesis 1, the first chapter in the Bible, is all about God creating by speaking life and possibility into existence. So too, when we speak, we create, we build up, we offer grace. We create this world that we share. In verse 32, it says, "Be kind, tender-hearted, forgiving," which leads into chapter 5 that says, "Be imitators of God, live in love." Note the difference between playing God, where we seek to control situations and people, and imitating God, where we live with love, grace, and tenderness. When I was in high school and I sang in the choir, our director, Bill Grace, who passed away this last year, had a student intern named Steve Perry. As it turned out, Steve Perry ended up being my son Caden's choir director at Lee Summit North High School, and he was retiring the year after Caden got finished. But Steve Perry's advice to all of his students throughout the years was, always strive to be a beneficial presence. Think about that when you think about what's your gift, what's your calling, what can I do in the world? What about always strive to be a beneficial presence? That's beautiful. I cannot stress enough the importance of recognizing our interconnectedness and our effect on one another. I have a slide with a quote from Jean-Baptiste Lecordaire. "We are leaves of one branch, drops of one sea, flowers of one garden." I love that quote. Plus there's this one. "The greatness of the human soul is not reflected in genius, nor glory, nor love. The greatness of the human soul is reflected in kindness." Simply kindness. There's a Jewish rabbinic story in which a rabbi asked his followers, "How do you know when the night is giving way and the morning is coming?" How do you know when the night is giving way and the morning is coming? And one student said, "Well, won't you know that the dawn is coming when you can see an animal well enough in the dim light, then you can tell if it's a sheep or a dog?" "No," answered the rabbi. Another student spoke and said, "Well, won't you know that the dawn is coming when you can see well enough to distinguish between a fig tree and an olive tree?" "No," answered the rabbi. The students pressed their teacher for the answer, and finally, with a little smile, the rabbi said, "You'll know that the night has passed and morning is coming when you can look at any man and any woman and know that you are looking at a brother or a sister. Until you can see that well, the night will always be with us." This is the mark of Jesus' ministry. This is the mark of tenderness. This is the mark of truly being the church. Pope Francis also said, "Every human being is the object of God's infinite tenderness." If nothing else, if you could just receive that. Every human being is the object of God's infinite tenderness. Appearances notwithstanding, every person is immensely holy and deserves our love. Consequently, if I can help out at least one person to have a better life, that already justifies my life. We achieve fulfillment when we break down walls and our heart is filled with tenderness. For our prayer this morning, at the end, I'm going to ask us to sing a round, and we've done this before, but we don't do it very often, but it's such a simple tune, and it goes like this. Yahweh, I adore you, and I lay my life before how I love you. It's a very tender song. It's beautiful. And so I'm asking Connor to come forward and help lead. I'm going to lead this group as we start off first, and then you guys are going to come in second, and we will sing all 3 verses. Yahweh, I adore you, and I lay my life before you, and I adore you. Jesus, I adore you, and I lay my life, I adore you, and I one more quote leading us into our time at the communion table today. This is from the Dalai Lama. Our prime purpose in this life is to help others. And if you can't help them, at least don't